Hello team, welcome to another ATP Geopolitics video with myself, Jonathan M.S. Pearce. This is a Ukraine war news update, the first part thereof the 16th of September 2025. I'm a little bit behind time this morning because I've been surveying the interwebs and just having a bit of a panic attack really. The 5 alarm bells are ringing clear in my head as I look at the activities going on across the pond in the United States, and I just can't believe that the nation is galloping towards autocracy. And I look at Scott Bessent and Marco Rubio and Donald Trump and their complete spineless, pathetic approach to Ukraine, and I just pull what few hairs I've got left out of my head out, and just like, really. I just can't sometimes, and today's one of those days. I'm going to turn this into anger, because anger, I think, motivates me to I don't want to approach anything like, oh my god, that's too much, I can't cope with any of it type thing, and then you end up doing nothing and being sort of having the wind taken out of your sails. I want the wind firmly behind my sails, but my goodness, I look at what's going on, and I did a really, I think, an important video last night on the Charlie Kirk shooting and the reaction to that, and which I urge everyone to go and watch. I think it's super important, and I think we're at a turning point, to use a particularly pertinent term at the moment, a turning point in certainly US political history and in world political history, and I'm looking at the rise of authoritarian thinking and the support for authoritarian thinking taking place around the world, including in the UK. And I worry for centrist parties. I worry for, centre left and centre right normal style of governance, because I think you're going to see a period of massive populism now rising, and people aren't afraid of authoritarianism. It's okay if it's our guy, and our guy stops freedom of speech, and our guy stops this, and our guy stops that. That's not a problem, because it's our guy. One rule for us, another rule for everyone else. And if we're in power, then hey, we'll just do whatever we like. And I'm really worried that we're going through a period of forgetting what happened in World War II and embracing authoritarian regimes around the world. And we have to fight hard for democracy, and Ukraine is doing that, and what should be their biggest allies are, I think, turning their back at every opportunity. And I just hope that Congress wakes up in the US and starts to push back against the White House, the executive. The unified executive theory over there is gaining more and more purchase and in the minds of the people in the White House, and they are looking for more and more power. And at the moment, Republican Congress people aren't willing to stand up to that, and I think that then has an effect on what's going on in Ukraine, to the point where Zelensky had an interview on Sky News last night, and he's very clearly not happy about how Trump is not doing enough, etc., etc. We'll come to that in the last section, but I've actually kept most of that for my geopolitical video. I was going to include a lot of that in this one, but no, we need to do some big discussions today, and I might rant, just giving you a warning. Anyway, let's go to Ukrainian general staff figures for the Russian losses for the day before. All the usual caveats apply. 910 personnel, fairly typical. 0 tanks, 5 troop-carrying AFVs, low in those categories. 26 artillery systems, just above the daily average. 2 multiple launch rocket systems, and 72 vehicles and fuel tanks. So somewhat lower across the board there, although above 900 with the personnel now. 900 is a new 1,000. So I think our sense of what's going on the front line, our metrics, or our benchmarks, have adjusted slightly as we look at, say, a day with 5 tank losses would be a really heavy equipment loss day, and maybe over 10 troop carrying AFVs. That's now a heavy day of combat asset losses, and a day that's over 900 is a good day, whereas it used to be 1,000. So our benchmarks are changing because activities along the front line have shifted in some kind of way. The Russian breakthrough near Pokrovsk has been eliminated, with clearing operations underway, says Deputy Commander of the 4th Brigade of Operational Purpose Rubezh, General Andriy Krishchenko. The sharp phase is over. Now it's already now it's steady work to destroy the enemy. And I'm not sure if that is referring to the area south of Prokotsk where they got into the city, or whether this is actually referring to the potential encirclements of these groups of Russian troops. But a lot of talk is going on as to the Prokotsk sector at the moment, and actually arguably somewhat similar, some claim, in Oleksivka area in the Sumy region. The area there is deteriorating rapidly according to Russian sources, so deteriorating for the Russians. Officially, it's being called an operational encirclement, but it looks more like a complete disaster for our troops on the ground. They write. So then, yet not looking good there, as the Ukrainians are trying to push the Russians back and succeeding, pushing them back towards the border. But as I keep mentioning, there are other places on the front line where it's very challenging for the Ukrainians. So I'll hopefully do a mapping update today. I might do a live. There's so much to talk about. I've already talked about how genocide has been concluded by a UN commission concerning Israel. So it's all happening. Okay, while NATO is cautious about sending troops to Ukraine, says Anton Gerashenko, for training so as not to irritate Russia, China is doing just that. Chinese soldiers are already gaining experience in modern warfare, just as North Korean soldiers have done and continue to do. So this is Gerashenko referring to a Russian soldier, documents the recruitment of Putin's army with mercenaries from China who came to, quote, fight against the nationalists. One of them is a drone operator, the other a sapper engineer. So Chinese are evidence fighting for the Russians there, as well as obviously North Koreans and many other nations with their mercenary units. Now, the defense forces damaged and flooded an underground pipe in the Kupiansk area. So we now know there's at least 3 times where the Russians have used pipes to get behind or at least attempt to get behind the Ukrainians. This happened up in Kupiansk. Then we've seen barbed wire put around the pipes. Concertina, what's it called? Yes, it is concertina wire. So concertina wire inside that pipeline, as I showed you yesterday. And now we're hearing that the Ukrainians have flooded an underground pipe to stop the Russians using it. Currently, the enemy's movement is not being recorded through this pipe. The commander of the 429th Separate Regiment of the Unmanned Systems Achilles, Yuri Fedorenko, said. So I think that is a case of proactively flooding the pipe. Russian saboteurs have disguised themselves in civilian clothes and attempted to infiltrate Yampil in the Donetsk region for sabotage operations in the rear. Some hid in houses and basements using civilians as human shields. Of course, this is all war crime under the Geneva Convention. Ukrainian forces carried out their anti-terror measures, neutralizing the groups and restoring control, is the claim. But that is not good news there. Now, here we have an image, and actually I almost showed you this yesterday. I'm showing it to you today. Ukrainian MiG-29 struck a Russian battalion HQ in Pidirine with a French ASM hammer-guided glide bomb. Now, I show it to you today, not yesterday, because the claim is that it was an HQ. So that was not the claim I saw originally. So it is possibly an HQ, and that could be a high-value target here. And then you hear this. So Ukraine has hit Russian command posts days after defense minister's visit, according to the military. September the 8th attacks reportedly targeted command posts of Russia's center group of forces and the 41st Combined Armed Army, whose units operate in the Pokrovsk sector. And this is after Belousov, the defense minister, visited. So Kyiv Independent reports that Ukrainian forces successfully struck Russian command posts in occupied Donetsk. The attack targeted command posts of Russia's center group and the 41st Combined Armed Army, whose units operate in Pokrovsk. Casualties among Russian personnel, including members of the command staff, have been confirmed. The statement read, Ukraine's general staff noted that Russian Defense Minister Andrei Belousov visited headquarters in the sector on August the 28th, just a few days before it was targeted. The attacks were carried out by Ukraine's missile and artillery troops, the Air Force and unmanned systems forces in cooperation with other units. Quote, strikes against a military facility significantly disrupting the command and control of Russian army units. So Russian media earlier reported on Belousov's visit in the center group of forces headquarters, saying the minister was briefed on military operations in the sector. And this might have been one of those times where things get out in the news or on social media, and that allows the geolocation of a place, and then the place gets hit. So Belousov visits, and then a few days later, this is struck. And obviously he will be visiting a place most probably where you are seeing coordination of military activities there. So it's going to be a command and control node of some sort. So that has happened. What else do we have? We see a drone striking a comms tower in Suzemka in Bryansk region. And that's of note because it's inside Russia, but you're seeing an FPV drone go and have a go at that and have some success, although it's quite a fairly large explosion. I don't know how large that drone was. Ukraine tests a new kamikaze drone resistant to Russian jamming. Quote, strike drones are becoming a cheap and practical solution for the front lines. They are affordable to manufacture and easily scalable, says Digital Transformation Minister Mikhailo Fedorov. Now, this is exactly what I've been calling for, which is the use of larger drones, not FPV drones, but the Ukrainians need to do what the Russians have been doing to some degree, which is using their Shahids on the front line. Ukrainians need to use large strike drones as a form of it's kind of HIMARS missile, maybe equivalent, or the explosives probably won't be as large as a HIMARS missile, but they need to start using stuff like this, I think, directly on the front lines, stopping the Russians in their tracks. Quote, kamikaze attack drones with a range of 40 kilometers capable of overcoming electronic warfare represent a new level of capability to attack the enemy, Fedorov has said. Electronic warfare has become one of Russia's key defenses against Ukraine's drone arsenal, as jamming and spoofing aim to disrupt navigation and prevent drones from striking targets. If proven resilient, the new systems could improve Ukraine's ability to strike logistics hubs, artillery positions, and equipment behind front Russian lines. Quote, strike drones are becoming a cheap and practical solution for the front lines. They're affordable to manufacture and easily scalable. Russia has scaled up production, relying heavily on Shahed-type attack drones for near-daily strikes on Ukrainian cities. But of course, as we know, they also use them on the front lines too. Now, this video was doing the rounds yesterday. We've seen these videos before. I've talked about them. In fact, people like Pierre Dupont, who is a friend of the channel. I've traveled around Ukraine with him a couple of times. His base UA have these units that allow you to see what drones local to you are seeing. So if there's a Russian drone that's near you that is targeting you, you can almost see yourself sometimes on these. Oh, I know I'm there, and there's a drone that's it's above, and it's coming right. You want to get in a basement or something. So here, Igor Sushko shares this one, saying soldiers use a domestically produced Bluebird Chuyka device to tap into a video signal of a Russian killer drone flying over them, and they watch a different Ukrainian unit disable it in real time with electronic warfare here. So here you can see it, and you're tapping into the Russian drone, and then it starts, losing control. And the feed then goes as the electronic warfare takes its toll on the Russian drone feed, and one assumes it falls to the ground and is unable to do what it sets out to do. I don't know where this is, but anyway, that's a decent bit of kit that I think you'll be seeing more and more of. Right. We have another explosion in Vladivostok. Remember, Vladivostok is on the eastern seaboard of Russia, right over the other side, sort of Japan way. Russia, a large explosion has occurred at 6:20 a.m. at a secret military facility in Vladivostok, says Igor Sushko. Initially, the report was a series of explosions at a government facility in Vladivostok on the aptly named Shitovaya Street. FSB quickly dispatched a word dispatch, and roadblocks were immediately set up in the vicinity, with all cars being checked. The official cause was issued extremely quickly. It was a gas leak. But the FSB is searching for saboteurs after the official story of a gas leak at a civilian government building fell apart. Soldiers on base were told to say it was a training exercise. Anyway, it is clear that it's not that. Sabotage has taken place, I think, there again, not for the first time. That's a long way from Ukraine. So Ukrainian intelligence claims to have carried out an operation in Russia's Far East with explosions hitting a parking area of the 47th Assault Battalion of the 155th Naval Infantry Brigade. Wow. So is that where they're from then? It must be Vladivostok. So they're the ones that have been absolutely rinsed a number of times in Ukraine. They're now fighting around Pokrovsk and getting getting their usual treatment. Local reports mention casualties, heavy security presence, and ambulances on site. So that has happened. We're going to go to distant strikes now, and 113 drones were sent into Ukraine, 89 of which were intercepted. That leaves 24 drones to have done their thing, which is quite a lot of drones. And of course, all the other ones falling down, and the debris, no doubt, causing destruction and issues for the Ukrainians. Overnight, Russia launched 113 drones, including Shaheds and Garand types from multiple locations. Ukrainian air defense downed or suppressed 89 of them. Across the country, strikes hit 6 locations, with debris falling in 2 more. Zaporizhia was also hit by 10 Tornado-S rockets, causing casualties. We'll come and look at that in a minute. Now, Ukraine has intercepted drones capable of shooting down jet-powered Shaheds, and they are already in use. That's coming from the deputy of the presidential office, Pavlo Palisa. So that's good news. Intercepted drones to take out jet-powered Shaheds. Zelensky already said that they need sort of 1,600 intercepted drones to take out 800 Shahed drones. You know, if you could have a complete success, then you need 2 intercepted drones for every 1 drone. Obviously, they don't always succeed. Now, Ukraine claims almost 50 components in Russia's latest jet drone are coming from overseas. Half of the 45 identified come from the USA, says Kiev, with 8 Chinese and 7 from Switzerland. Germany, the UK and Japan also contributed smaller amounts. This is very worrying. That's a Garand 2 drone that is packed with a large number of foreign components, particularly from the United States. Now, this is just coming out. This is a horrendous bit of footage, and this is partly why I'm so bloody angry as well. This is the Pharmaceutical University, because, you know, nothing says military target like a university. And here we have a drone. Now, that is the sound. So it looks like a missile, but I think it's because you get the kind of cross section of it. You're looking at it from the side, but I think that is a drone. And that slams. I'm going to turn the sound off now, and that slams into a building that is a university building and causes all sorts of damage, and that is horrendous. That's in Kyiv. Absolutely horrific. Yeah, I'm angry today. At night, Russians attacked rescuers in the Kyiv region while they were extinguishing a fire because bastards. In particular, as a result of a Russian drone attack, a fire broke out in a parking area of a shopping centre. However, the Russians struck again while rescuers were already on the scene because bastards. And then we have Russian drones striking warehouses at a logistics hub in Kyiv. Regional local authorities report in a Fastiv district, 4 houses, a warehouse, 14 trucks and 9 cars were damaged. Emergency services are on the site. And then we have this. A large column of black smoke is rising near Kyiv after an alleged Shahed drone strike. According to local channels, reports say it can be seen from the Vasilkik area, awaiting official confirmation. Actually, this appears to be coming from another strike on another EpiCentre shopping Home Depot style DIY shopping centre. First, though, breaking news after a number of morning attacks by Russia, particularly in the Kyiv region, says Tim White. So these are morning attacks and won't be included on that infographic. This is Fastiv, where a logistics centre for electronic retail company EpiCentre is located. Residents are warned of potential air pollution. And you can see that epicenters have been struck in a number of places. Kharkiv saw a massive epicenter store get hit. There were no deaths or injuries in the attack in the buildings in Fastiv. Epicenter says during the full-scale war, dozens of network facilities have been destroyed in different regions of Ukraine, according to estimates by independent experts. The total amount of losses exceeds $1 billion. This is how Russia destroys Ukraine's economy, commercial. And, you know, epicenter is going to be super important for rebuilding houses and damaged whatever it is. And Ukraine is suffering as Russia systematically takes out these sites. It's just, yeah, horrendous. Large column of black smoke seen rising near Kyiv as that centre was struck. And there you go, you can see the fire raging there. New footage shows the scale of the fire after a Russian strike on the EpiCentre logistics facility in Kiev. The damage is significant, with rescue services working at the scene. There's going to be so much flammable stuff in there, of course, whether it be wood, paints, varnishes, whatever. It's going to be seriously burning. And then this one was from Zaporizhia last night. After a Russian strike, you can see a tanker there on fire, and indeed that's what the tanker looks like this morning. Russian strike on Zaporizhia last night, 18 people injured. As of now, more people are asking for medical assistance with shrapnel wounds, concussions and acute stress reactions. Residential building and vehicles damaged as per usual. Russian tactics of attacking Ukrainian civilians because bastards. And on the Ukrainian side of things, Russian monitoring channels reported that Ukrainian drone activity was in, lots of the usual suspects here. Rostov Oblast, Milarovo, Kamensk, Shakhtinsky, Novoshakhtinsk, Shakhty, and Taganrog. That's a lot of places just over the border into Rostov and nearby. Not a crazy amount of information about what might have been struck. Nizhny Novgorod region in Kosovo, local residents reported a strike on an oil refinery there. That has been struck before, so there is smoke coming from that, but I don't know how much damage has been done. Then we also hear that Saratov oil refinery was targeted last night, and that's it amid an attack by Ukrainian drones. Air defenses were very active there. Explosions were reported. NASA satellites show a large fire on the south side of the facility. Extent of the damage, though, is unclear. And that, I'm hoping that's part of the processing going on there, rather than it be some other thing to the south. You can see there are different areas of this facility. There's a depot right at the bottom of the image there, and some containers in the middle of there, and then processing infrastructure all over the shop. I hope that they have hit something within that facility. Ukrainian Special Operations Forces, together with other defense units, struck the Saratov oil refinery, says no reports in Russia. Overnight on September the 16th, explosions and fire were reported at the site, with damage assessments ongoing. We also hear about the Kinef. This is, was it Karisha? Yeah, it doesn't say there. So this was a strike from a couple of nights ago. The 86 unit, the Russian Kinef oil refinery, which has a capacity of 7.6 million tons a year and accounts for 38% of the plant's total capacity, has been shut down after a Ukrainian drone attack. At Kinef, 3 other primary units are still operating: the AVT-6, AVT-2 and the AT-1, a total of 62% of the total capacity of the plant. The plant intends to increase the load of the remaining operating units by 15 to 20%, which will allow maintaining processing at a level of 72 to 75% of the total capacity. So that gives you an idea of a successful strike there on that. 7.6 million tons a year, and that's been reduced to what eventually will be reduced to 72 to 75% capacity. And so that's why I think you're seeing the Ukrainians hit these refineries sometimes multiple times, give it a bit of a break, then hit it again. There's unfinished work to be done there. It's estimated that the recovery for that will take a month. So a month later, that'll be back up to 100%. So it needs to be this continued process of taking out these refineries. But as I was discussing yesterday, it might be that only 2 drones out of 20 get through. And so it's quite a logistically demanding and resource materially expensive process taking out these high-level targets. Now, the Romanian President Nicolae Dan said that Bucharest rather does not support imposing a no-fly zone over Ukraine, warning it would mean entering the war with Russia. He noted the position could change depending on future developments. There's been this pressure since there have been drones in Romania, drones in Poland, to put no-fly zones that can creep over the border into Ukraine. I definitely advocate for that. But Nicolae Dan doesn't want to get involved in the war in such a direct way, which I also understand, but I also think that allies need to be stronger and need to actually push the envelope far more consistently. Now, I had so much I was going to report in this section, but I'll leave it for the geopolitics section. Yevgen Istribin says, in Russia, independent oil depots have run out of gasoline. Independent participants in the oil products market, traders and oil depots, have significantly reduced the volumes of fuel planned for sale on the exchange on September the 15th to the 19th. August 18th to 22nd reached 455 to 555 tons per day, 127 to 175 tons of gasoline. August 25th to 29th, 330 tons, that's 100 tons of gasoline. At September the 8th to 12th, 240 tons, and that's 100 tons of gasoline again. And September the 15th to the 19th, 180 tons per day and no gasoline. So that last input there shows the effect that the Ukrainians are having on the sale of fuel types in Russia, and gasoline is the big one. I mean, you want diesel to be hit because that's what the army works off, but gasoline has been particularly hit, petrol in Russia. Now, Russia brings back a barter system to bypass sanctions. We have heard this previously. It's now coming out again, reported by Reuters. Russia has revived barter in its foreign trade for the first time since the 1990s. Actually, I don't think it is, because I think we have heard this previously in the war. Exchanging goods such as grain and flax seeds for Chinese cars and construction materials in an effort to evade sanctions, according to Reuters, reporting that on the 15th yesterday. Now, the war could end in 60 or 90 days if Europe imposed sanctions on buyers of Russian oil, said the US Secretary of the Treasury, Sir Scott Bessent. Said the Americans come out saying, well, look, we won't do anything until the Europeans do stuff and NATO does stuff. It's really interesting. I was watching the comedy show Late Night with Seth Meyers, and he did his closer look section on leading from behind. So the Republicans used to lampoon the Democrats under Obama, but Biden as well, for supposedly leading from behind. The idea is that the US stopped leading in the world and left it up to Europe to do stuff, and etc., etc. That was what they did, lead from behind. And Seth Meyers used this example of what Trump said the other day on Truth Social as the US leading from behind. Like, we'll only do this if you do this. It's really weak. It's really weak, and this is why I'm really angry, because I think the US position at the moment, it's not just me having TDS or whatever. It's like the US is not leading in the world. They've given up, and yeah, you might say, well, it's up to Europeans. Europeans should be doing this. The Americans need to put sanctions on. European sanctions. They're putting their 19th sanctions package on this week. They're going to reveal it, I think, on Wednesday. And the US have done no sanctions packages of any real worth since January the 20th. And they keep saying 2 weeks, 2 weeks, 2 weeks, 50 days, 10 to 12 days, 2 weeks, and then nothing happens. And again, we're at the stage where nothing is happening. And they're saying, well, actually, we will do something if you do something. And it's just this cyclical nature of weakness after weakness after weakness after weakness. And somebody, please... well, I was going to say, no, I don't mean get rid of Trump, but I mean, like, let there be a revolution or something, or let there be an internal GOP coup of the sensible Republicans coming back and saying, look, Donald, I'm afraid you're nuts and we don't agree with you anymore, and we've grown a backbone. See you later, matey. We'll take it from here. But, of course, that's not going to happen. He has an iron grip over Congress. Now, Ukraine themselves are in financial trouble, as you would expect. Ukraine submits a draft 2026 budget amid rising financial gap projections. So their expenditures are projected to be $116.5 billion. And that's an increase of $10 billion compared to 2025. And unfortunately, they're not getting in quite enough income, and they're struggling to pay the army at the moment. Things are looking very precarious for the Ukrainian budgets. Now, going to throw this one in there. A drone was spotted over government buildings in Poland and was destroyed about 15 minutes ago. This was Donald Tusk last night. Now, this wasn't, as far as I understand, like a one-way attack drone coming from Russia, but 2 Belarusian citizens have also been detained. The investigation is ongoing, so this could well be a reconnaissance drone, like an FPV type drone, a Mavic being spotted above a government building in Poland, and it being operated by 2 Belarusians. But I guess we'll find out a little more later. Now, talking about Belarus, Reuters is reporting that US military personnel made an unexpected visit to Belarus to observe the Zapad 2025 military exercises. The outlet reports that Belarusian Defense Minister Viktor Krenin told them that they could examine, quote, everything that interests them. Reuters reporting the US military officers observed Russia-Belarus war games as Trump gets closer to Minsk. As someone said, messaged me earlier saying, it's not a dictator that Trump just wants to get closer to. Like, is this another global dictator that Trump is rubbing shoulders with? I mean, what is going on? It's absolutely insane. So Russia and Belarus holds joint military drills. War games come amid heightened tensions with NATO. Poland temporarily closes the border with Belarus, and US military officials show up in Belarus to watch. Now, you could say, well, that's good. They're overseeing this. Or this could be the US getting closer to Belarus after they just had those cozy meetings and the US lifted sanctions on Belarusian aviation industry, which allows Russia to order parts through the back door. I mean, it's ridiculous. Yeah. The US military officers observed joint war games between Russia and Belarus on Monday for the first time since Moscow used Belarus as a launch pad to enter Ukraine, as US President Donald Trump deepens ties with Moscow's closest allies. The presence of US officers less than a week after neighbouring Poland shot down Russian drones that crossed into its airspace is the latest sign that Washington is seeking to warm ties with Belarus. Last week, Trump's representative John Cole visited Minsk, had a lovely big hug with Lukashenko, and said Trump wanted to reopen the US embassy there soon, normalise ties and revive trade. And now they've got military observers. Okay. Ukraine's Commander-in-Chief General Syrskyi has dismissed 2 corps commanders over lost territory. Interesting. So people being held accountable for decisions on the battlefield, quite possibly, and that could be a healthy sign. Vladimir Selenko, head of the 17th Corps, and Maxim Kutuhin, commander of the 20th Corps, have been dismissed from their positions there. Now, India has sent 60... this should have been earlier, just in another sign of... India has sent 65 troops to the joint Russia-Belarus Zapad 2025 military exercises amid rising tensions with Washington. So, while Washington's getting closer to Belarus, India is also getting closer to their BRICS colleagues. Analysts warn that this move crosses a red line, showing where New Delhi's strategic priorities lie, balancing historic alliances with present geopolitical pressure. I just think, do you know what? None of this crap was happening a year ago under Biden, and I know this sounds all political and whatnot, but the US is on fire. Stuff is just going nuts. There's a trade war with everyone. Inflation's going up. You've got rising autocracy. Trump is taking the New York Times to court for $15 billion, as we hear this morning, which is what he did with the others to, like Disney and Paramount, CBS and ABC, to grift money off the system. And he's just saying he's got the power to do whatever he likes. Other crazy things he's been saying the last 24 hours that I'm going to be reporting on later. I just like, what is going on? Like a year ago, this wasn't happening. And this is not good news, as we're now seeing Indian soldiers doing joint military maneuvers with Russia and Belarus. It's just, And Zelensky, I think, is feeling this. So he's just done this big old interview with Sky News where he was pretty forthright. Zelensky told Sky News he's deeply disappointed with the West. He accused Trump of helping Putin escape isolation. He's urged Washington to take a clear stance on sanctions and security guarantees, and said he's ready to meet Trump and Putin without preconditions, just not in Moscow. He's doing everything he can to get peace done, and there's absolutely no help from the US. On the eve of Donald Trump's arrival to the UK for a state visit, so Trump is due to arrive today, I think, Zelensky has criticised the US president. Says Tim White, Ukraine's leader, told Sky News that Trump is being tricked and should never have given Putin what he wanted, which was to be welcomed back from isolation in Alaska. Just absolutely 100% on point there. But we'll talk about that in a further video. There's been, unfortunately, a racist attack on Ukrainians in Poland. In Wrocław, a Ukrainian woman's car was attacked. License plates with the Ukrainian flag were removed, and scrawled on the car is "Go to the front." So yeah, that is, I think, reflective somewhat of the growing either apathy or lack of support in Poland, which is what Donald Tusk was warning about yesterday, or it could just be Russians undercover, doing their things there. Anyway, I'm going to think about how I'm going to rant. I know it's coming. It's one of those days. That's this video for you. I hope that it was informative and interesting. Let me know how you feel. Thank you for your support, and don't forget that we are doing our bit to support the Ukrainians. Car for Ukraine, Autumn Harvest, ATP Geopolitics landing page here. If you go to atpgeo.com/donate. Wow. We have just shot up another 3,000 in a single day. You can get patches and pins and everything there. Please come and help out. Thank you so much. This is insane. So a number of people haven't left their names here. So sorry for those who have done it anonymously. I'm not sorry, but I'm not going to read your names. But thank you to Will Planitzer. Massive thanks to Peter Kluken, who is always really, really generous when it comes to these campaigns. So Peter, you are a total legend, and I'm not having it any other way. You are just a legend. Horst Herborth, thank you. Paul Barry, thank you. Allard Huisman, Michael Winkler, who is also super generous. Thank you, Michael. He's a total legend too. Carol Adams, Iskren Galev, Peter Dermer, Charles Todd, Tony Wood, Roger Levy, and then we're back to who we had yesterday. So thank you to all of those people and all the anonymous ones as well. You are tremendously generous. Thank you. Take care. I'll speak to you soon.